Good morning and welcome to the Rewind Show, the Sunday supplement, 211th edition of the Rewind Show. I'm Steve Brown, and over there, usual spot with a teddy bear, not a cup, is Brent Peters. How you doing?
I'm all right, Steve, but listen, when you're working around ladies, you have to do what the ladies say. So I've got Deborah, but now I've also got Jane Pallister, and she's outside the door this morning, and she said, "Well, the cup's not there, or any cup's not there. I brought you this to put on your plinth."
Well, I thought it was there because yesterday it certainly wasn't a teddy bear's picnic, was it?
Well, some of the players might have thought so. It was a teddy bear's picnic, but listen, while we're on that subject. Many congratulations to Dave Jones and everybody at Atherton LR. I'm made up for them. They just missed out last year, and they were determined to go on and do the business this year. And they've been consistent all the way through. They've been tremendous, and not only that, I think Dave. I mean, I get on really, really well with Dave. He's a good guy. And it's a good club. He's Atherton LR. They've come on leaps and bounds. I mean, it's funny because, going back in the day in 1993, when I was the manager of Rosendale United, we actually won the Macron Cup at Gig Lane, but we were challenging Atherton LR all the way for the league, and they pipped us by a couple of points to win it, and we were second in the league. So. It was always going to be a tough nut to crack when we arrived there yesterday, because obviously yesterday, and they needed that. They needed that result. Well, they needed a win to secure and not make it sure it didn't go to the last game of the season, which is always a pressure cooker and always twitchy bum time. But no, it's. I've got to give them the utmost respect and well done. But let me tell you, I mean, as you know, a few weeks ago, you asked me what I felt and what I thought had happened with the league in terms of promotion, and I did say that my fancy for the league was Atherton LR, and I did fancy that Droylsden will go through in the playoffs. Now, obviously, one part of me, I don't like to be a loser, and obviously, when we are going to, I don't like to be a loser on anything, even tiddlywink. So the fact of the matter is, when we were going to Atherton, I couldn't be seen to put out a weakened team because I knew all the management committee would be there. I thought, blinking heck, how am I going to do this one? I've got to come up with something. So Mr. Miguel, who's our physio, I kind of give him a bit of powder before the game, and he dropped it in the orange juice. Well, this powder, it's a bit like hypnosis, It's a bit like hypnosis. What it does, it puts you on another planet. Well, so when you drink the orange juice, you're totally on a different planet. So it relaxes you, then anything can happen. Well, exactly. We saw the outcome. So the powder worked wonders.
Yeah. Before you continue, though, I know that you want to mention something, but I want to mention something as well, or we do, as a football club, Brent, and that is the sponsorship, the partnership with the clothing brand Terry's Cult. Another season. Steve Lum and the team are going to be with us for the 2025-26 season. Great news. Yeah,
fantastic. I mean, the fact that they've been, Steve Lum has been tremendous with Bacup Football Club since the day that he came and opened a plumber's facility down the road in Stanley Jacks.
Yeah,
he's been
the club.
Yeah, he's been tremendous, and obviously his young lad Stanley. He comes and watches us when he can, home and away, and I'm really glad to see that Stanley, who's kind of the same age as goes to the same school and are good friends as with my grandson Harley Jack Peters, and Stanley's doing well, in his music career. And long may that continue. So yeah, I mean, when it come up to the cup final situation, and obviously sorting out the kits and everything for the cup final, the one branding that really I wanted with us as a partnership, if we could get it over the line, was that a tourist cult in business, Steve, and in terms of commercial activity. There's certain items that we have that are made for certain organisations.
You want to attach yourself to them as well.
Yeah, that's right. And I just felt that the tourist cult branding, was a great. It was great for them if they could be with us as an official cup final partner.
But great for us to be with them.
But it's great for us to be with them, because it just fitted a hand in glove, and I'm just glad that after discussions with myself and Jane, I'm just glad that Jane, I mean, it's a thankless job, is this business business development. It really is, especially at this, with the economical climate that we're in. It's really, really difficult. But, thanks to Jane and, listening and then having to go on and speak to Steve and discussing it with Steve, and thanks to the partners of Tourist Cult for all agreeing that, yeah, we're going for it. And I'm really, really pleased, because that's where my wish list was.
Yeah, great news to have them with us for another season. But a little bit of sad news as well this week, Brent. One of your former players.
Yeah, it's really sad. I mean, the passing of the news broke earlier this week that the passing of former Burnley footballer Andrew Wharton. Now, for anybody that doesn't know Andrew Wharton or the Wharton family, they're actually from Waterfoot, which is just down the road,
Yeah.
And Andrew not only played a part for Burnley Football Club, and a good part, because back in the day when Andrew was at Burnley, I mean, it was his hometown club. Yeah. When I say his hometown club, I mean, obviously, people
would have been probably born in Burnley.
Yeah, exactly. And the thing is that Rosendale, quite a lot of Rosendale people support Burnley, and Burnley was a big club for Andrew when he got there, to the point that, and it was well documented at the time that the press picked up on it, he had BFC tattooed on his knuckles.
Yeah, because it was that kind of character, wasn't it?
Yeah, he was. He was a real character, and he had BFC tattooed on his knuckles, and he managed to go through an apprenticeship at Burnley, and he did actually break into the first team. So when it was the old first, second, third, fourth division, I think Burnley at the time were in the third division, and he played. And he played several first team games for Burnley, and did well, and then eventually things like does happen with some people. Things didn't kind of work out in the end, and he played a big part for his two of his hometown clubs, Bacup Borough and Rosendale United. I was grateful to take him. I took him to Glossop North End. He played under me at Glossop North End, and he actually had a spell under me at Rosendale, but he played at Bacup under Gary Warburton, who was the manager before I took over at Bacup Borough. So he has represented the two Senior Valley clubs, and he's, it's really sad, because he was a top lad, and he was an excellent, committed footballer. And I'm just proud and privileged that I had the chance to manage him, and and it hasn't been easy in his life. I mean, I remember when he were playing under me at Glossop, he was working for, which is now, I think it used to be Duralay, which are up at Aslin, and I think they might be Linterform now. I'm not sure, but they're a big company up in Aslington. and he was working there, and somehow he had a bad accident there. I don't know how this came about, but he ended up getting his head crushed between two trailers, and had a very, very serious operation. And I remember, this typifies the lad. I remember at the time, you know, he came back, he was recovering from it, and the surgeon had told him that he hadn't to, you know, he couldn't head a ball, and he hadn't have any, you know, he couldn't have any coming together or anything like that. And he to like kind of put football on the back burner. But you know what? Such is the manner of the man. Yeah. He weren't having that. He weren't having it, and he came back and played. You know, even against the wishes of, because he was that way inclined. That was he was fully committed, and you know, don't worry, I'll be back, and he were back. So he'll be sadly missed, and our thoughts go out to all his family at this difficult time.
Yeah,
but I'd also like. Have you anything to add to that, Steve? Yes.
No, go on.
I'd also like to say that on a more pleasant note, happy birthday today to our own Alan Taylor, one of the coaching staff here at Bacup Borough.
He kept that quiet.
He's kept it quiet, but I found out earlier on in the week, and so that's one of the reasons he wasn't there yesterday. But happy birthday to Alan, and whilst we're saying happy birthday to Alan, I would also like to wish Gemma Lord, who comes up watching, happy birthday as well, because it's Gemma Lord's birthday today as well. So there you go, 2 happy birthdays. Hope they have a tremendous day.
Let's get on to the football. Yesterday, as you rightly say, it was always going to be a tough ask against now the champions, Atherton LR, rightly so. But what we didn't want to happen was to concede so early in a game. We knew it was going to be tough. Wanted to give them a game, but to concede within the opening 8 minutes, Brent, after that, the writing were on the wall, wasn't it?
Well, yeah, anything that
went south
could be a disaster ended up being a disaster. I mean, look, in any game of football, which way you look at it, you know, in any level, irrespective of the team out there, they always say, managers, coaches, you stay in the game as long as you can stay in the game. You know, that's the way it is. You stay tight at the beginning, be solid, be resolute, you know, be difficult to break down, and then you can flower out, and then you can go on and hopefully win the game. And this is something that's been executed over the years here at Bacup Borough. But what happened to concede so early on, especially against a team that probably went out probably on the face of it before they went out onto that pitch, would, you know, let's make no mistake about it, that Bacup Borough on the day is more than a match for any team in the league, and we've proved that. You know, the lads have proved that over games that they've played, and they're not in another cup final for not being that kind of a team.
Yeah.
So the fact of the matter is, you know, you can imagine that Atherton would be a bit apprehensive, a bit worried, because it could have been a banana skin for them, and it was important that the longer that game goes on, you know, when they start the game, the longer it goes on where it's kind of 0-0, and you're keeping it solid and you're keeping it tight, you know, longer they get a bit anxious and frustrated. But it was easy for them because in the first 7 minutes they break the deadlock. But it's the way that they broke the deadlock. It was a cheap goal. It was. Look, it's a difficult one for me today because, you know, our big days to come. So I've got to be very, very guided and careful in kind of what I say, because, you know, we've got to rally the troops and we've got to be back on it big time, ready for a really, really big, difficult, tough nut to crack in our own game. So I've got to be careful what I say, and guided in what I say, but equally I've got to be as honest as I can, because I won't be doing this programme justice if I wasn't being honest. But I've got to. It was ridiculous how that first goal came, because the defender in question, he weren't even tight in the first place, and it was a centre forward that scored it. They had 2 lads up front, right? So it was a centre forward who scored it. He hasn't even gone tight on him, and then when he's actually gone to close him down, he's gone to ground. Well, that's it's absolute sacrilege. It just anybody, even people who've not. The laymen who go watching football will turn around and tell you, no defender should go to ground. Once you go to ground, you're knackered.
Yeah.
You're out of the game, and he's gone to ground. And it just made it so easy for him. I mean, listen, the lad finished it tremendously well. You've got to give the finish, the credit to the finish. But
it was a free shot, wasn't it?
But it was scandalous how it happened, and it should never have happened, and it did happen. So straight away, as soon as any team goes a goal down, you've got to change. Things have got to change somehow, and the mentality's got to change. But then when they got the second, straight away you could see the adrenaline. Like when I say the adrenaline, you could see the occasion of they're on tenterhooks. Even one's never enough. It's a bad scoreline is one, but as soon as they got the second, you could see that the pressure. The pressure just drained out of them, basically, and they could relax. Yeah. We've got a 2-goal cushion, and then they just really went. But it's the manner that the goals came. Again, the second goal, it was from nothing. And people, you see, it's easy for people, whether they be players, whether they be supporters, even watching games this afternoon on TV, or even watching them live. People will start to complain about nonsensical things, about when you go 2 goals down, they'll just complain about, why we're not doing this and why we're not doing that. But hang on, I respect players more who would point instead of trying to find a reason or trying to make an excuse of why we're 2 goals down, point the finger at the blinking person. I'm sorry, but this is how it has to happen. Yeah. Point the finger at the person that's actually got you in that position. Yeah. Because usually, and especially when we break all these goals down that happened yesterday and why they happened, in any game we've played this season, even the Padiham game, that were an excellent game, even the game against Exton, even the game against Radcliffe. If we'd have done the same shit that we were doing yesterday, the scoreline would have been the same.
Yeah.
There's no two ways about it. It would have been exactly the same. But and especially if you're playing a team that's clinical, and obviously LR are, right? So the issue is stop looking. As soon as you go a goal down or 2 goals down, stop looking at shit that's not relevant, because all season it's worked for us. Yeah. But all of a sudden it's not working for us because we're 2-0 down.
What's relevant is what's on the pitch, and then there's got to be a collective accountability from somewhere. Somebody's got to take the baton.
Exactly. So that's what I'm saying. So if somebody makes a ruck and makes a wrong decision, don't be a bottle job. Don't be a bottle job. Just hang on, Steve. Don't be a bottle job and not say nothing to the person involved. I mean, to be honest, at half time, I've got to say this, and I've got to give Callum Hewitt some credit here, because I've never seen this, I've not known this happen so much this season. But it was a senior player that was trying to make an excuse. And again, I'm not trying to throw anybody under a bus here. It was a senior player that was trying to make an excuse of why these 2 goals happened. It was ridiculous what he was saying, because I didn't agree with it, right, what he was saying, right? It was just an excuse. He was trying to blag over it. But fair credit to Callum at half-time. He went out and he did make him answerable, because he said, in all fairness, you've gone to ground.
Called him out.
He called him out. And I've got to give Callum tremendous, because that showed a bit of leadership for me there.
Isn't that what a mature dressing room does?
Correct. 100%, Steve. 100%.
And the week before, my point I'm trying to make, we get one of the youngest players, Billy Blake, who's had a tremendous season. What was the first thing he did against Main Road when he conceded them goals?
So his hands
went
up in
dumb.
the air. Exactly.
And that's the youngest player in the squad.
Exactly. 100%. So when that happens, what does everybody do? They back off him because they know he knows. You know, and this is what I'm saying. If you make a mistake or not a mistake, if you make a wrong decision,
be man enough to own it.
Own it. Admit to it. Don't try and blag and come out with load of crap.
It makes it worse.
It makes it worse. And exactly. And for me, the first 2 goals, I'm sorry, but they're down to him. They're down to one individual. And it's nothing to do with anything else on that pitch. It's nothing to do how we set up. It's nothing to do with nothing else. I'm saying to you straight, if those goals would have happened then that situation would have happened in any other game. Look, I'm not here to it's all hindsight, but I'm telling you now, if Joey Fallon was playing in that position yesterday, those situations would never have happened. Right? Never in a month of Sundays would have happened. Because the first thing that Joey Fallon does in every game he plays, he goes tight on his man who he's responsible for him. So the man wouldn't even have chance for anything else. He'd be competing with him.
Yeah.
You follow me?
He'd have no option but to go back with the ball.
Yeah. And Joey would be competing with him. This player who we're talking about, and again, when I'm having conversations, and even over the years, and as much as he's been and he is a good lad and a good servant. Again, it's horses for courses. He's the type of player that when you're playing kind of a sweeper system, he sweeps.
Yeah, and
that's when you get the best out of him because he's good at that because he reads the game and he covers other people.
Yes.
But in the way that we were set up yesterday and the fact that he had to come into the team yesterday because Joey still wasn't fit, right? He has to adapt.
He had to be a man-to-man marker.
He has to adopt his game differently. So what I'm trying to get at, I'm trying to be as fair and honest as I can. He can't drop off, right? He can't drop off. And that's what he was doing. He was dropping off and kind of trying to mark space, if you will. But you can't.
Yesterday with their formation, you didn't have that luxury.
Correct. So he needed to not drop off. He needed to go tight on them. So if he goes tight on them, at least there's no wriggle room. They can't. They're not going to get. But because he's not tight on them, and then he's like kind of closing down quickly. And then when he's closing down quickly, he goes to ground. It's just madness. But obviously, the lad in question's got a lot of pride, and I know his character and I know what he's about. But as soon as he gets in the changing room, instead of just holding his hands up, I've had one of them Calamity Jane days. Right? He tried to deflect it, and to be fair to Callum, I've got to say that I think I wish there were more people than that, rather than start coming out with shit in a changing room where they're going on about, wow, it's all negative. And we've been negative. You're only defending defenders. You have to defend situations. And you ought, which has happened all season, when you defend the situations and then you win the ball and then everybody breaks out, you punish people then, right? Now, okay, we could say that really didn't happen. Even when we did get the ball out and it went up to the front man holds it up. What's supposed to happen is the front man holds it up, and while the runners are running out, he stays hold of it, holds people off while people are coming onto him, and then he plays the ball out, and then we can play. But if you notice yesterday, when it goes up to the front man, he holds it up and he did well, right? But then he's trying to turn and face up and then go towards goal.
Turning into traffic.
But he's turning into traffic, and also there's nobody around him because they're still behind him. So again, that was not good play. Yeah. And again, that's what I've got to say. Anybody with intelligence in football, player-wise, would say something about that. But they don't, because they've either not got any intelligence in football, or they don't like to tell the truth to one of the teammates.
But as you say, though, Brent, these are the same players who got excellent results against Ratcliffe, excellent results against Padiham. They've shown this season that when it is done right and effectively, it works with these players.
100%. 100%.
So why is it kind of falling off a cliff in the recent weeks?
Because there's some players carrying injuries, right? And we've had this out, and they're not being honest. So they're not being, if they're carrying injuries, right, they can't make the same movements. And what they do, they don't want to be losing the place in the team, which is wrong, right? They're being selfish, they're stealing a position, but they're not being open and transparent and honest, right? And I've said this, and even last week after last week's show, I get phone calls on Monday morning of players that, one player in particular who admitted that I was right in everything I'd said. He were carrying injuries. He had been struggling, and and he kind of felt that he's been basically caught out, and he needed a rest, and he needed to be taken out. Now, it shouldn't need me to come on this show to say stuff like what I'm saying for the honesty to then come out. They should be honest straight away. We're a squad. We're all together. And what should happen is you can't, if you're only at 75%, you've got to be honest and say I'm only at 75%. There's certain movements I can't do. Like if you've got a groin strain, there'll be certain movements that you'll get a sharp pain when you make it. So you should be open and honest, but they're not open and honest, and that is the problem. Players are playing with injuries, and they're not being true to the self. They're not being true to the teammates, and they're not being true to the management and coaching staff. And that obviously is a problem. I mean, we look at yesterday's game. I've got a question. We've got a player. Now, it's the easiest thing in the world to turn around and say, my sat nav, right? I'm not stupid. I've been on this earth a long time, and I'm not stupid, right? I'm counting the numbers. We give them till they were supposed to meet at 1:15. I didn't go in the changing rooms till 1:30. I'm counting. I'm thinking, we're a man down here. Who's down? So who's missing? So we're going through who's missing. We ended up finding out who was missing, which was, I've got to say, this is usually unusual for this player. I go to my car. I have to go to my car because I don't have my phone switched off. So I go to my car, make the phone call. But he'd already made the phone call. My phone were in the car. Deborah happened to be sat in my car, so she answered my phone. And this player in question said, I'm going to be, my sat-nav's had to reroute me. And I'm now going to be, I'll be there anytime. It's showing me I'm going to be 20 minutes late. Now, okay, these things can happen. I get that. But if you give yourself enough time when you're setting off, you allow for that happening. If it's rerouting you because there's a problem, it allows for that, right? If you're there on time and there's no rerouting, you might be sat outside the ground. I mean, I arrived at the ground because I give myself plenty of time, and I allow time for any eventuality on the motorway. I actually, because it was a good run, I actually was sat outside the ground at 12:30 for a quarter past one meet. But if there'd have been hold-ups on the motorway, which easily they could do, I could have found myself on minutes, because that's the time span that you could be sat in traffic. So it's all about preparation and preparing. So the preparation of this particular player was not right. And then he starts to say in the game, I'm feeling my hamstring. Now, I'm not here to call him a liar, right? But I didn't see him open up enough to freaking test his hamstring. You're on mute, Steve. I don't think you're on. I couldn't hear you then. I think you're on mute. So I didn't. Yeah, that's better. So yeah. I didn't see him open up enough to test his hamstring. So I'm thinking to myself, hang on, is this there's something that, so he ends up coming off. But this is what I mean about, is this a bottle job? Is this a bottle job? Because Did he go out last night? Did he go out night before? Is he under the weather? Did he go? Did he end up in somebody's sloozy's freaking bedroom while half at morning and freaking giving the sloozy one? Do you know what I'm trying to say?
Or is he thinking it's going to be a difficult afternoon at the office and I want out?
Exactly. I'm not stupid, so I never even spoke to him. He's ended up coming off, and I'm thinking, does he think I'm blinking stupid here? It's the easiest thing in the world to. I'm feeling my hamstrings a bit tight, just to freaking bottle out of it. But I didn't see him. I can understand if he kind of opened up like Joel does.
No, there were no driving runs, were there?
There were no driving runs. So I'm thinking, what's he talking about? Right. So again, I've got to think about the mentality sometimes of a stunts they pull. I mean, he might be genuine. I'm not saying he's not genuine, but it just looked a bit blinking shady to me. You know, all of a sudden
orchestrated.
Correct. So, that's it was.
I want to talk a bit because I've had this conversation with you off air. You did it last season with the team. You've given everyone the opportunity to stake a claim for a shirt. You did it. You said I wanted to play all the players so that they could get, no one could come back to me. They don't come back saying, you're not giving me a chance in the side. But for what I've seen of the last couple of games, you've given people the opportunity to stake a claim and they've not picked up the baton. They've not taken it by the scruff of the neck and they've not shown enough in my eyes. And I'm talking about players who have returned from injury.
You're 100% right, Steve. But as a manager, you're 100% right. Listen, players at any level can't rest on their laurels. They can't turn around and say, let's stay in a football league environment. You can't turn around and say, because your name is Ronaldo, doesn't mean to say that you can't have a run of really bad, under par performances. But because your name's Ronaldo, you've got an expectation of always being in the team, because it doesn't work that way.
Like you've got a right to be in the seat, be in the side.
Yeah, exactly. But it doesn't work that way. A Ronaldo, when he's on it, is a world-class player.
Yeah.
When he's not on it, he's not a world-class player, and he's not on it, so he hasn't got a divine right. You're carrying him, so he hasn't got a divine right to be in that team because he's called Ronaldo. If you take that into a non-league environment and you've got a player that, when he's fit and he's been fit and he's one of the key cogs in your wheel and has been one of the key cogs in the wheel, but then he goes out and he's had injuries or he's had personal issues or he's had this or he's had that, and he comes back into the team, right? And he's underparing. He's got to realise he's underparing. He's got to realise that it doesn't. You can't. He hasn't got a divine right to be in because of what he had in the bank from previous matches when he had a run of games.
Yeah,
and he's got to understand that, and other people have to understand that. Now, as a manager, and I said this in my talk before the game, we've got a squad of players, right? Now, if we go through every team sheet throughout the season, apart from probably Joey Fallon, who was injured yesterday, if Joey Fallon had been fit yesterday and I'd have started with Michael Gervin and I'd have started with Alex Miller, that team yesterday, in the main, would have been the team that's played in all our games, majority of the games all season, and certainly have played in the big games where we've had big results.
Yeah.
You can't get away from that. So the player you're on about, and in questioning you're on about, hasn't even been around the team. He's been watching from the sidelines for whatever reason. Yeah. So the player you're talking about, that's what's happened. He's been around. He hasn't been even in the team. Right?
But I know from our conversations that we've had, you have been desperate to try and get this player back in the side. because you know what he can deliver when he's effective.
Well,
he's an important part of the squad.
What I've got to do, this is what I'm coming to. Yeah. But what we've got to do, it's easy for me as a manager, or any manager, not just me, any manager, to carry on being blinkered, carrying on with the group of players and the team that's got you to where they've got you, and dismiss everybody else outside it.
Yeah.
But that is not right.
No,
because of the way the fixtures have gone and the way that the cup, from winning the cup semi-final to the final, there's several weeks, and in several weeks, several things can go wrong. People can have an accident, God forbid, at work. People could go down with sickness. People can not realise and have booked an holiday because they think the season's finished, and then they think, oh, I'm linking car crash because I thought season had finished. I didn't realise we were still in this cup competition or whatever. You get that?
Or we were going to get to a cup final.
And we were going to get to a cup final. So a lot of things can go under the bridge and you can't predict. So as a manager, I have got to be seen, in my opinion, to be giving everybody a chance. So the likes of Ryan Siddall, it's not my fault that he decided to miss a critical part of the season after Christmas to go for 3 weeks or however long it were to Thailand, which I think is total madness. But that's again the mentality situation, right? Yeah. But I haven't dismissed him. I've not wrote him off. I've allowed him to come back in and trying to get him back somehow up to speed, because he might become an important cog in the wheel, especially if something goes wrong. Yeah, with let's say, God forbid, if something went wrong with Callum Hewitt.
Yeah.
You know, he probably would be the ideal replacement to step in there, right? Probably, right? So I'm not saying he would be, you know, there could be other players by moving him about, but he could. So I can't dismiss him. I've got to get him in the fold somehow. Equally, you've got the likes of Bradley Hancock, who's not been a part of us all season. If you look at team sheets, he's hardly been on one. I think his last game, in all them big games that we've played, he did actually play, and I think he came off the bench, or did he start? I'm not sure, at Uxton. And he did score.
Yeah, he scored. Yeah.
But in all the other games, he's not been a part of the team. He's not been in the change. He's not been around us. He's not been nothing. But a very fit Bradley Hancock, extremely fit Bradley Hancock.
A different beast when he's fully fit.
And his mind's on it and everything's on it. He's a different player. So he is a valuable player that we need to get on track only when fully fit. Right? So again, it's my job. I can't dismiss him, even though we've got the players that have got us there. I can't dismiss him because he's a valuable member.
Yeah.
So I need to get him up to speed. But so that's that situation. Then we've got two excellent lads, and I'm just going to use this. Well, three excellent lads. We've got three excellent lads in Jack Hayward, right? But Jack obviously is juggling his time with the under-23s and us, so he gets regular minutes with the under-23s. But he's a valuable member. There's no two ways about that. He gives you good options in a more advanced position. Yeah. Then we've got Joe Booth, and we've got Ollie Hodgson, two excellent lads that are learning and learning the trade. Now, there comes a time I can keep picking them because they've been a kind of effective coming from the bench, and I could be blinkered and think, I'll just leave them for the bench because they're a different grade. They'll change a game and come off the bench. But there comes a time, again, because when I go through the performances of certain players, and when I go through the goals situation of certain players, whether it be midfield or attack, and I look at the stats and they're not where they should be on the stats of the goals thing, I've then got to think, you know what? We've got enough games coming now to give these lads a chance in the starting lineup and see what they do in the starting lineup. Because if they come into the starting lineup and push up trees and give us something differently, right, and add something else to the team, which is good and positive, then there's no reason why when I come to pick the cup final team, that
they're in it.
They're in it. But the only way I can do that is by letting them play. Now, if you look and take the Joel situation, Joel's always played when he's come on at the number 10.
Yeah.
Now, the other day I played it, but Joel can give you number 10. He can play, although he'd be a different kind of a centre forward to Toby. He could play number 9, and he can play 7 or 11. So, but predominantly, I've always brought him on since the day he walked in this club and from the day that he come on as a sub at Droylsden, he went in the number 10 shirt. And he's done all right in the number 10 shirt, but he's not, I'm going to say what I have to say. He's not a Michael Gervin. He's a different kind of player to Michael Gervin. But what that number 10 shirt demands is you don't have to, ideally you need to be, when your centre forward drops in, the number 10 should be going beyond him. I get that. But sometimes there's players in your team, like if you look at back in the day when Man United were flying, David Beckham never used to get to the byline and then put crosses in for Man United when he were wearing the number 7 shirt. He could stand in his space and deliver quality defence splitting balls.
Yeah.
So if we revert that to Michael Gervin, when he's on it, can do exactly the same. He's a game changer because he unlocks doors. Now, if you go back to the Main Road game the other night, I thought the lads did a really good performance, workmanlike, against a very good Main Road side. If we take the mistakes out, which there were 2 mistakes, that game would have ended a stalemate, without a doubt. Because I think if we'd have played from Wednesday until next Wednesday, I don't think we'd have scored.
No.
And the reason why I don't think we'd have scored is, again, because we didn't have that player in the team, whoever that player is, that can unlock a situation.
Yeah.
That don't mean to say that Joe wasn't playing well. He gives you different options. He's a runner.
He's certainly got the work rate.
He's got the work rate, but he's not. But the work rate, he got the event. Whereas a clever player in there, a clever with an head. I used to say this about Man United when Juan Mata played there. He was underestimated, but in the games when they never looked like they were going to score, they bring Juan Mata on, and then all of a sudden,
killer pass.
He put a killer pass in because he'd see it.
Yeah.
So it's horses for courses, but I've got to try these things. It's no good trying them on the day of the cup final because that's too late. So I have to try these situations,
and that's why the last couple of weeks I'll bring up a question. We've had a question in which Neil Harris talking about we're questioning some of the players, but Neil's saying could you also point the finger at the person who's picking the team? Now, you've just answered that question, Brent, because you've got to change things around in order to give the fringe players an opportunity to be in contention for the final.
That's what I mean. I could go on a safe bet,
and pick the same side every single week.
Every week, and they get more positive results than negative, right? more positive than negative. But that means I'm dismissing other players.
Yeah.
And I've just said that. I've just said exactly that. I've just said that there's other players in the camp, for whatever reason, coming back from injuries, coming back from being away on holiday or whatever,
that need a chance.
That need a chance. They can't be dismissed. Now, if we strip all that back, you could also ask yourself the question, why are they fringe players in the first place? The fringe players for a reason, because they're not up to where they should be to take us on. Now, but I still have to give them a chance. Now, the only way I can give them a chance is to be leaving people out. The other thing is, by leaving people out, it's a balancing act, because you want continuity going into a cup final, obviously, but equally, you don't want your key players being smashed and injured. We've already got a load of injuries at the minute. I've just said that on here. If they listen, I've got injuries. There's people hiding injuries. They're not right. But they're not telling us they're not right. But you see them in the physio room. And then when you question the physio, he says they could get through a game, but they're not right. Well, if they're not right, they're not right.
But they're doing everything just trying to protect their final place.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly, 100%. So my point is, coming back to like yesterday and even previous games, these lads have been given a chance to stake a claim. Now, it's the old saying, you either pick the baton up and run with it, or you fall on your face. You die on your sword.
Mm.
But the only way you're going to see this is by picking them and giving them the chance. If you don't pick them and don't give them that chance, and then it comes to an injury situation and they get picked in a cup final and they fall flat on their face, and you start to question them, what do you think the reaction is going to be from that player when that happens? I'm not being funny. When have I had game time? When was the last time I started?
Yeah, there'll be an excuse to come with it.
Exactly, that's what will happen. I mean, these people who come on, they've got every right to question. I get that, but they've got to look at the bigger picture. I've been a manager over 40 odd years, and I know how it works. It's not just about picking a team. You've got to get the people. You know, you've got to be fair to everybody that's in your squad. I'm not saying people in the 23s are you going to step up. I'm not on about that. I'm on about your 20-man squad. You've got to be fair to them to try and get them in. Now, there were players in that team yesterday. I could have started. Let's be honest. I couldn't start Joy Fallon. So at the back, it were as it were. But I could have started Michael Gervin. But Michael Gervin, with the one who rang the last week and said, "You're right. I'm carrying an injury, and you're right. I need to be taken out." So I've always had this kind of ruling where once they've had an injury and they're coming back, they need to either show in training that they've got no ill effects, or they've got to show in a game, whether it be 23s, that they're getting no effects. We haven't been in a situation to do that. So the easiest thing in my eyes, before yesterday's game were, look, I can play. It gave me a chance to have a look at yesterday Brad Hancock playing in that role, because we know he can play in that role.
Yeah.
Right. So it gave me the chance to see if he could play, because if he picks the baton up and runs with it and does really well, and he was getting man of the match yesterday, and he plays in the same position against Sken next week, and gets man of the match again. What do I do on the cup final? It gives me a great headache, a good headache.
Yeah.
A good headache. But when you put somebody in and they fail, well, that's what you put them in for. They either swim or they sink.
And then it opens it up for other players to get a chance in the team.
Yeah, exactly. But you've got to do that. That's a manager's. That's it. In any level, that's a manager's prerogative. Now, a fan can come on and say, "Why is he not playing?" Or "Why is he not playing?" Well, I'm telling you the reason on here why they're not playing, or why they haven't been played.
Why you've changed the formation and put players in different positions.
Exactly. I mean, it's like, you know, we know what certain players. I know what Alex Mellor can do. We've had him enough season, but I've not give Joel a chance at playing number 11.
Yeah.
So it were ideal to sit Alex out and put Joel at number 11 and see what he could do there. Now, if Joel had come up with 2 goals with his work rate and he made a big difference, then again it gives me an headache when I'm looking at the selection come cup final day. But unless you do it, you're not going to know.
Exactly.
Because he's not been in them positions. So you need to know. So
we had nothing to lose going into the game.
Listen, we had nothing to lose going into the game because we weren't challenging. I said this to you on last week's show. It doesn't matter. Once them playoffs we're out, it doesn't matter. As long as you're safe and you're not going to get relegated, you could mess with team at once. I could put I could have done for the last few weeks, put several 16-year-olds in if I wanted. Yeah. It wouldn't have made any difference. You know, that's the beauty. You can do it. It doesn't matter what do you get for finishing just above relegation. You're safe. Yeah. You know, weeks ago we were safe, so it doesn't matter if we're sliding down the league. So what? We know we're not going to go down.
No.
So it gives the manager the chance to blink in, do what he's doing. But the majority of that team, which way you look at it, the majority of that team yesterday, right, apart from the obvious, were the team that's carried us over and done well. But you know, let's be honest, it isn't putting anybody under a buzz or anything. But if you look at yesterday, you know, let's just take it. Has Ben Langley played near enough every game of the season? Yeah, he has. Did he play yesterday? Yeah, he did. Right? Has Brady Boorman played most of the games of the season? Yeah, he has.
Yeah.
Yeah, he has. Has Gareth Wager played most of the games of the season? No, he hasn't. No. Joey Fallon has. Has Mason Fallon played most of the games of the season? No, he hasn't played most because he's been injured.
Yeah. But he's had a good innings.
But he's had a good innings, so we're obviously getting him back up to speed where he should be. So the answer to the question, when you go down, has Callum Hewitt played most of the games of the season? Yes, he has.
Yeah. So the vast majority have had a 75%, 80% of the season. And the rest of the players, the fringe players, you've been tinkering with them to give them game time to see if they're up to the task.
Correct, 100%. And knowing full well that if it fails, what's the worst case scenario? Okay, we got beat 6-0 yesterday, but what's the worst case scenario? It don't make any difference to our season.
No,
we just got beat 6-0. But I could tell you. I mean, let's talk about the third goal. So 2-0 at half time, which it were, right? 2-0, and just before half time, we changed the shape to match them.
Yeah,
we were in the game. We hit the bar going in. If we'd have got one goal, which we should have had just before half time, it could.
Oh, it'd have been perfect to get that goal just before the break.
Right. So then we look at, and again, it's too easy to blame coaches, managers, or whoever. This is naivety, than what I'm going to tell you next. Naivety. And as frustrated as supporters might be, we're even more frustrated. So we go out the second. So we've got them geared up at half time, right? Positive. You'll get back in this game. No problems. We'll get back in it. No issues. You'll get chances. We just proved that, and we can take the game to them. Get one, we'll get two. So we go out immediately the second half, and you're defending the slope. Now, I've had this conversation on this show before, several weeks ago, when we played at Olka.
Yeah.
Why on God's earth would you be keeping an high line when you're defending a slope?
You know they're going to put that ball on you.
You're going to put it on you. So you drop off. You defend your 18-yard box. Right? What did we do immediately from the kickoff? Right? It's just kept an high line, and they put the ball straight down on us. And then a centre-half gets twisted inside out, route one, bang, it's in, 3-0, game over. Right immediately at the start. Now, I'm not being funny, and I'm not here to throw in. No manager in the blinking world can freaking legislate for that stupidity. Where's the leaders? And then to make matters worse at this point, one of the three who was in the three turned round to one of the coaches and said, "What we doing keeping an eye line?" Well, don't ask us because you haven't been told to keep an eye line. Ask your teammates. If you know that we shouldn't be keeping an eye line, then tell them, drop them off, get them deep.
I'm only laughing, Brett. If you don't laugh, you'll cry. Because, like you said, it was just absolute carnage, weren't it, to concede a goal within 30 seconds. But I saw you talking to Nigel. I mentioned it when you were driving back yesterday. And I said you were stood there with that notepad, and I thought, fucking shove it up your backside because it's doing you no good. And you said, I just kept hold of it to keep the sun out of my eyes.
No, I kept hold of it because, I put it down, but the papers had been blowing everywhere. So I just kept hold of it. But it was ridiculous. And I'm thinking, wow. So from all our team talk, we've come in, we're positive, and straight from the kickoff, they've kept an eye. So where's the leaders? Surely, what the baby? Honestly, I don't get it. Mentality. As soon as it's happened, one of them of the three has turned round and gone, "Why are we keeping an eye line?" Well, surely while you were keeping an eye line before they took the kick off, that should have been said.
Yeah. Defend
deep. So,
or as they're taking him out, someone's got to say, "Hold on a minute, where the fuck we going here?"
Exactly. So listen. Don't take anything away from Atherton on the day. They were clinical. But listen, they didn't play no football. It was just route one. And because we
allowed them to. We accommodated them.
Yeah, because we did what we did, or did. We just allowed the route one,
yeah.
And it was just a car crash. But then again, this is where clubs, teams need leaders on the park. We are helpless on the sidelines. We can't do nothing. There's nothing we can. There's nothing at all we can do.
You pick the side, Brent. But once them players, it's like any side. Once they cross that white line, it's up to the players to have leadership qualities and be accountable.
Well, let's look at it this way, right? So whoever this guy is who's come on and said what his point is about manager.
Yeah.
Let's get one thing straight here, right? Over the last 4 year, we've been to four cup finals.
4 finals now.
4 finals, right? With the same squad of players. All right, we might have underachieved in the league, but nevertheless, there's teams out there that might finish higher than you, but aren't even on the honours list, right? We've been to 4 cup finals.
But 90% of this squad are the same people.
They're the same team, and we're playing the same way. So nothing's any different, right? It comes down to a mentality situation. So, and the guys turn around about picking the team. So if you look at that team, we've just gone through it. If you look at that team that started yesterday, right? I haven't got my pad, but I'll go through it, right? We've just said it. So Billy Blake, I mean, obviously in previous seasons. So Ben Langley has been the right back for probably the last 2 seasons, right?
Yeah.
He's been the right back. So it's still your same right back, right? Joey Fallon, who wasn't in yesterday, has been your centre back for all them cup finals.
Alongside Gareth.
Well, it hasn't always been alongside Gareth. No, Gareth hasn't been alongside, but Malachi's played there.
Yeah.
Right? Malachi's played there. Gareth hasn't always been there. Right? So and then you go to Brady, apart from this season, this is his first season, but he's been excellent this season.
Yeah.
No, it's not getting on wrong. So that's not a detriment.
That's not an issue, no.
That's not an issue. And then your left back has been in the main. It's been Mason or it's been Brad.
Yeah.
So that's not an issue. They're all the same players. They're all on the same play. So this guy who's freaking come on saying he's every right to say, but does he watch us all the time? Is he? Because it's a fallacy, really. The same players played the same way that served us well, even this season. So your midfield, you look at your midfield, Ben Thompson, Callum Hewitt, Michael Gervin, all the same players.
Yeah.
All the same players. Up front, Toby Wright, Cal Sidall, Alex Miller.
Yeah.
All
You
the same.
talk about the roles and responsibilities, which is massive. And it just shows that if they don't get it right and don't carry them out in the right manner, we end up with not defeats like yesterday, because that was a whopper as far as we're concerned, but we always end up on the wrong side when they don't commit to the roles and responsibilities.
I've said it before. I've said it again. I'll say it again. Even in all them big games, if you don't do it, if you do, they know it works because it's proved it.
Of course it works.
It only needs one not to do it because they can't. They feel they can't get around the pitch.
It just becomes a domino effect.
So it has a domino effect. I mean, I'm not going to mention, but one player came to my coach yesterday and went, and somebody who's not been round us all season, but obviously his fitness levels aren't where they are. So straight away, what do you think he said to our coach? Do you think we can just hold a position and play zonal and just hold a position? Why do you think he's saying that rather than marking? That's
cheating, is that? That's cheating. That's because he wants a cigar.
Correct. It's bad.
You can't kid a kidder.
Exactly. So yeah, I hope that answers all the questions.
It does, Brent. It's great, but like you said, you've got to be seen to be changing things in order to give players a chance for selection. But you also said about the young ones coming through, the Joe Booths, the Ollie Hodgsons. They're going to be the future of the club.
100%.
At some point, you're going to have to start playing them.
Yeah, they're going to start. Yeah, exactly. Well, it's all about next season now, isn't it? That's what we're looking at. I've been on about next season from probably 6 weeks ago. They're already targeting people to come in, but it's a meat market out there once season finishes. Don't forget, another thing you've got to look at is when we come down to budgets and everything else. It's not that players I remember last summer, all summer I was chasing this prolific striker all summer. Yes, I'm coming. Yes. Bet me. Yes, I'm coming. Every time we tried to get him to put pen to paper, yeah, don't worry, I'm coming. But you knew that he was hanging out because the telephone keeps ringing.
Yeah.
And if the telephone, so they hang on, who waits for a better deal? But it's not always on to wait for a better deal because the player I'm on about, it's become a car crash season for him. Because what he's done, he's ended up at the 11th hour not coming here, although all summer he said he was coming, right? He's ended up not coming here. He's had a better offer elsewhere. The club he went to, I'm not going to mention no names, was in an higher league. It didn't work out for him. He's got disillusioned because it didn't work out for him because the competition were obviously fierce at that club and they had a budget, and it's a club that's come in news recently about being investigated, right? So they had all the quality players and everything. So it's ended up where he's finished up the season back in the counties, but at a Premier League club, just seeing the season out. But these supporters out there, they think you can just put players off, but it's difficult. It is really difficult. It's not easy. It's easy if you've got money. It's massively easy because money talks. But at a club like Baycoat, unless you're going to put your hand in your pocket, money doesn't talk because we struggle to get money.
And we've seen now in the counties, even in Division One North, the money that's being thrown around for players is absolutely crazy.
Well, even Paul Lawler yesterday, the chairman of the league. I was talking to Paul Lawler yesterday, chairman of the league. He said exactly the same. It's madness. It's absolute madness. You wouldn't know these people come on here and they'll talk and they've every reason to voice an opinion. But before you voice an opinion, look at the bigger picture. Understand what goes on. Understand what people are up against, even managers somewhere else. They're up against. It's difficult. It's massively difficult. It's not easy. Yeah. So sometimes you know, we've had it here. If we went, no disrespect, if we went with a team for the future, like your Joe Boos, like your Ollie Hodgsons, like your Billy Billy Blake in goal, like these people, and you had more young and really didn't have any experience. The thing is, what could happen is it's a tough old league we're playing. So again, it's all about results and performance. So what could end up happening if you're not careful? What could end up happening? You could destroy their confidence because they're not ready yet to play in a demanding league. So that's where you've got to get the fine line and the balance of trying to get experience in with them to help them along the way.
Yeah.
So it's a balance, but it's also down to money.
Like I say, to bring that experience in to put amongst the younger players, it's going to cost.
Yeah, exactly. Of course it costs us. And people, as much as everybody wants to see a new signing and wants these new signings and says, all right, you know, go and get a new signing and all that, people won't commit till near enough the start of the new season because they know that as soon as the season finishes, as soon as everything's done, as soon as the playoffs are done, as soon as the promotions are done and the relegations are done, that's when managers are kind of making promises. Some managers are out there making promises they can't fulfill. It's just bullshit. It's just absolute bullshit. But I remember one club back in not that long ago, they used to do it all the time because what you don't realise is this, right? You can't sign players on until the AGM, after the AGM of the league. And the AGM of the league isn't until the back end of June. And you can't start registering players.
1st of July, isn't it?
1st of July is the window will open to sign players. Right. So this is what happens. One club in particular used to do this. I mean, they've changed the regime now. They've got different people involved. But this were a classic, what they do. They go and target a lot of the best players, top hitters. I'll pay you this. I'll pay you that. I'll pay you that. Yeah, that sounds good. Sign here. So they've got them signed now. They signed.
Yeah.
They're on paper. They've registered them. They don't pay the wages until if it's a week in hand, it's a week in hand. If it's 2 weeks in hand, it's 2 weeks in hand. However they do it. So in theory, it'd be, say we start on the 1st of August, so the first wages won't be due the end of the second week or the end of the third week. So they don't have to pay wages straight away. So they've got all these lads tied up. But until their first wages come, right, they think they're on that money and all that. But then what they used to do, mess about with the money.
Yeah.
And then players would get disillusioned. He's messing about with the money. He's not giving me what he promised me and all this carry on. But they can't go anywhere then, even on a non-contract, because one might go, because a 7-day notice allows that. But you can't return to that club for another 30 days to get another one. So technically, the players are already tied in.
Yeah.
So again, they got shafted, and I've seen that happening. In fact, it happened with Adrian Bellamy at one point when he in between here. I mean, Adrian were here for a long time, but when he left here, he did it. Same thing happened, and I told him, I warned him. I said, they'll mess with your money. I'll guarantee it. And they did.
The thing is, that's we've mentioned this many a time. That's different with Baker Borough, because very different to a lot of clubs in the country, is the fact that the person who's signing you is the person who's paying you. So, there's no grey area, is there? Well,
it's like I've said before, and I've said it before to players. A month into season, 6 weeks into season, your manager might get sacked.
Yeah.
Because he's governed by the committee. And if the manager gets sacked, then the next manager coming in might not fancy you.
Or not going to guarantee you
or he's not going to guarantee you your money, what you've been promised, exactly. Whereas, whether people like it or don't like it here, everything that goes on here, we haven't got any money that's going on surplus here is coming out of my pocket. So if I wanted to get another manager in tomorrow, why should I let another manager? Would you let somebody else control your bank account when it's your money?
Not a chance.
Oh, exactly. So am I going to let anybody control my bank account?
No.
Because it's my money. It's not Bakeup's. Because Bakeup had no money. I'm the one that keeps fueling Bakeup to put the money in to make sure it stays alive.
But your players know they get paid every Thursday.
Well, they get paid. Sometimes there is a slight delay, but it depends on how games have gone here. But they always get it. They'll always get it. It's always get it. They always get it. And if I've promised something and told them they're getting that, that's what they'll get. I don't renege because whether we're top at league or whether we're bottom at league, they'll get it.
Yeah.
You know, we
players. I know for a fact, Brent, that even players who have been out injured for a long time, those payments, those expenses have still arrived.
Well, I'm going to give you a tale here, right? I'm going to give you a tale. So my physio, right, came to me the other day and gutted. I can't work on cup final day, and I want to be part of it, Brent. Right? Why can't you work cup final day? And it's something to do with his visa and everything else. He's got a visa and he's got to return home to his family to see his family, but there's only certain times and dates he can go.
Yeah.
I don't know the ins and outs, right? Yeah. But it's all to do with overseas and legislation. So he said, do you want me to get Lewis Llewellyn in, who used to be physio
2 seasons ago, yeah.
Yeah. So I've gone, I have no problems with Lewis Llewellyn, but let me just sit down and what's stopping? Do you want to be at this cup final? Yeah, it's gutting me out. Of course I want to be a part of it. Of course I do. Right. Tell me what the situation is. He said, well, my partner can go out the day before, that's no problem, on the day of the cup final. But I've got to go at the same time. He said, I could get a flight the day after, but the flight the day after is going to cost me so much. But I can't afford that. So you know what I said?
I'll
tell you what, I'll meet you halfway.
Brilliant.
And last night he booked on a flight and I put his money in his bank.
Excellent. And Miguel will be at that cup final representing Bakerborough.
That's what it's about.
Of course it is. Absolutely brilliant. I think we're going to end it there. Anything more to add before we wrap it up? I think we remain quite positive there. More positive than last week.
Exactly, but some home truth needed telling last week. But we've got to get their minds back on track. But listen, the final word I'll have to say is, you give enough people enough rope, they're either sinking or they're swimming, and some of them are either hanging themselves. And I'm sadly to say that yesterday, the ones are an odd one, or that we've given an opportunity to, maybe has hanged himself now. I don't know. We'll see.
See you later, mate.
See you, pal.